Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Soul Land 2 Part 200 based on novel. So let's start. This little fellow wasn't picky with his food. He was eating very happily, and naturally stopped crying because he had something to eat. But his large black eyes were staring at Huiyuhao from the beginning to the end. Reality proved that this one-year-old child wasn't just able to eat food for grown men, he could even walk. Even though he didn't walk very stably, the little child who should be Xu Yunhan began to walk by himself when Huiyuhao let him go. Furthermore, he wasn't uncomfortable with strangers, and he stopped crying once he was full. He was all smiles, and the way he smiled made all the title Dolor react with kind and amiable expressions. What a cute little baby! The little child returned in front of Huiyuhao after circling around, and seemed to stare at him very seriously before he exclaimed babyishly, "Daddy!" Huiyuhao almost jumped to his feet in surprise. This child wasn't the only person to call him Daddy. The Snow Lady had called him that before. But Huiyuhao realized to his surprise that he was only awkward and embarrassed when the Snow Lady called him that, but when this little fellow called him that, he felt shaken. There seemed to be some kind of formless fate in the nether that tied them together when the little boy uttered that word. Huiyuhao possessed the Eye of Destiny, and he was extremely sensitive to it. He seemed to feel like his destiny was connected to this little fellow when the child called to him. He made his decision in that moment. Huiyuhao took the baby back into his arms as he said teasingly, "What's your name?" "Yunhan." The baby replied very cleanly. Huiyuhao realized from interacting with the baby that Xu Yunhan was already very good with words, even if he could only say a few. The baby had to be very familiar with those words, otherwise he wouldn't be able to speak them. Huiyuhao subconsciously kissed the baby on his tender little cheeks. Xu Yunhan's chubby cheeks were soft and bouncy, and his smooth and tender skin was just like his mother's. He. The little child seemed to feel ticklish as he withdrew his neck and laughed. Huiyuhao laughed as well. This kid was just too cute. Tang Wutong came over and began to tease little Yunhan with Huiyuhao. She giggled and said, "Seems like you're quite good with kids. Did you teach yourself?" Huiyuhao chuckled. "You might as well say that I'm naturally talented. I will be an excellent father when we have kids in the future." Tang Wutong blushed, but she didn't avoid his gentle gaze. Her eyes were brimming with happiness. A smiling face suddenly cut in between them in this moment, and two large eyes stared at Tang Wutong seriously. "Daddy, mine." Tang Wutong couldn't help but laugh. "Your daddy isn't here, She suddenly paused when she said those words, and dejection appeared in her eyes as she glanced at Huiyuhao. Huiyuhao's smile disappeared at the same time, and he gently caressed Xu Yunhan's head. Some more time passed as the little fellow fell asleep because he was full and tired from playing, and everyone took off once more. The title Doluo didn't say anything, but anybody would realize upon closer inspection that the atmosphere between everyone was conspicuously more tense. They were flying far too quickly, and the Sun Moon Empire's territory was so wide. Those who were pursuing them couldn't catch up because there was no way they could lock onto their positions. Huiyuhao relied on his formidable spiritual detection as he successfully took everyone across the border's defenses once more. They returned to the Mingdo mountain range and directly descended towards the mountain range's main peak. The title Dolor's expressions were a lot more relaxed when they returned. They were finally back, and even though their mission wasn't perfect, they had accomplished at least half of it. They had heavily injured the Sun Moon Empire's emperor, Xu Tianran, and managed to capture the Sun Moon Empire's crown prince, Xu Yunhan. But at the same time, the body Dolor remained in the Sun Moon Empire forever and would never return. The White Tiger Duke welcomed them personally. He stared at everyone's solemn expressions, and his eyes dimmed when he didn't see Dubuzi. The White Tiger Duke turned to Huiyuhao when they arrived inside the commander's tent. "Tell me what happened, Yuhao." Huiyuhao nodded. He was still carrying Xu Yunhan in his arms, and the little fellow was sleeping very soundly. He immediately recounted everything that he had seen on this mission in detail, except he didn't tell the White Tiger Duke about the body Dolor handing him the secrets of the body. The White Tiger Duke shut his eyes painfully after listening to his report. After a few moments, he said, the body doulour realized his wish. He had already told me that before everyone departed. He couldn't recover from his old injuries, and he wanted to give his full strength to assassinate Xu Tianran on this mission. Back then, I already felt like something was wrong. And it seems like he had planned this a long time ago. Everyone lowered their heads gloomily, especially those formidable individuals from the body sect. The body doulour's death undoubtedly meant the body sect's fall from glory. In addition to the large masses of their elites who had perished in the war, the body sect probably wouldn't regain their strength even after a few hundred years. The White Tiger Duke finally trained his eyes on Xu Yunhan, who was still in Hui Yuhao's arms. A complicated look appeared in his eyes. Capturing the Crown Prince wasn't his idea. He had been heroic and valiant his entire life, but now he was using a child to threaten the Sun Moon Empire. He wasn't willing at all, from the bottom of his heart. But the Sun Moon Empire was far too powerful, and if they didn't have a plan to counter them, the White Tiger Duke wasn't confident at all of defending his empire's territory when the Sun Moon Empire's enormous empire descended upon them like a thunderstorm. Hui Yuhao turned to the White Tiger Duke with a calm look on his face. What shall we do with the child, Duke? What are you planning to do with him? The word he used was you, not us. Hesitation appeared in the White Tiger Duke's eyes as he said subconsciously, what suggestions do you have, Yuhao? Hui Yuhao said without hesitation, war is an affair for men. It has nothing to do with children. No matter who he is, he's still a child. We are honorable men, so how can we use an infant to threaten our enemies? That's not honorable at all. Furthermore, with the Sun Moon Empire's emperor's personality, kidnapping the Crown Prince will lose its meaning, since he isn't dead. He can have one Crown Prince, so why can't he bear another? Hui Yuhao's words were very precise. If the body doulour, Dubuzi had assassinated Xu Tianran successfully, then the Doulour continent's 3 native empires wouldn't have to do anything if they captured the Crown Prince. The Sun Moon Empire would naturally descend into chaos because everyone would be fighting for control of the throne. The Sun Moon Empire wouldn't have a leader while the ruler had no heir. Who wouldn't want to rule over such a powerful empire? But Xu Tianran was still alive, so the Sun Moon Empire couldn't truly be that chaotic. Kidnapping the Crown Prince under such circumstances perhaps wouldn't have its desired effect, unless Xu Tianran placed a lot of importance on that son of his, and was willing to pay a tremendous price for him. Otherwise, if he really did abandon the Crown Prince, then everything that everyone did would become meaningless. What you're saying is that capturing the Crown Prince is useless. The Heavenly Sun Doulour's voice was suddenly a little higher than before. They went through so much to kidnap the Crown Prince, and even though Hui Yuhao's words sounded virtuous, he had still touched a nerve. That was especially so for the other titled doulour who were with the Heavenly Sun Doulour in capturing the Crown Prince. Everyone showed displeased expressions. Hui Yuhao shook his head and said, I didn't mean to offend. But if I had known that our mission's target was a child, nothing would have convinced me to participate. The Heavenly Sun Doulour stared at him coldly and said, Child? This child's father is the one who commanded the Sun Moon Empire's army to sweep over the Heavenly Soul Empire, and if that didn't happen, why would the body doulour sacrifice himself? His sacrifice created the opportunity for us to kidnap the Crown Prince. You're so young, but your tongue is sharp, and yet you think you stand on the moral high ground. Do you think that's enough to save your country? So what if we do despicable things for our country? Hui Yuhao answered plainly, the reason why the body doulour chose to attack the sacrificial platform instead of personally kidnapping this child was probably because he felt it was beneath his dignity. Otherwise, on the day of the ceremony, all of the Sun Moon Empire's high-level officials would be watching the sacrificial platform. Even without a diversion, what do you think the body doulour's chances would have been if he had snuck into the royal palace to kidnap this child, with his strength? Aren't you guys aware? Everyone's faces changed once more as they heard his words. The titled doulour's expressions became even blacker than before. The Heavenly Sun Doulour turned to the White Tiger Duke and said, Duke, Hui Yuhao did contribute a lot to this operation, and he was a great help to us. Now that the mission has been completed, he can return to Shrek Academy. We should be the ones discussing what comes next. He's a junior, and he doesn't have to continue participating. The White Tiger Duke nodded and turned to Hui Yuhao. Yuhao, the Heavenly Sun Dolor is right. You have already helped us a lot on this mission. You should go back and rest, and return to the academy as quickly as possible. We'll deal with the rest. How could he not agree with what Hui Yuhao said deep in his heart? But their enemy was near, and he could only choose to protect Hui Yuhao as much as possible with so many titled Dolor in front of them. The White Tiger Duke walked in front of Hui Yuhao and took Xu Yunhan from him as he spoke. Hui Yuhao's expression was a little blank. He fixed his eyes on the White Tiger Duke, and when the Duke took the baby, Hui Yuhao suddenly asked, "Duke, sir, if your son was the one who was kidnapped and your enemies wanted you to pay a price, would you do it?" The White Tiger Duke was momentarily stunned. He suddenly felt that Hui Yuhao's gaze was a little blinding, but he still answered without hesitation, "If my enemy's price was personal, then I would give my own life to save my child. But if my enemy's price was for me to betray my country, then I would avenge my son." Hui Yuhao suddenly laughed out loud and said, "Good, good, you will avenge your son. You live up to your name as a loyal and righteous duke." Ha ha, ha 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 ha. Hui Yuhao pulled Tang Wutong along as he laughed before he turned and left. As he walked off, a titled Dolor from the Doling Empire couldn't help but comment, "This kid is too arrogant. Although he's capable, it's still." "Shut up." The Heavenly Sun Dolor turned grim. "He's not just capable. When we were his age, we were nothing yet. His future is unlimited. In addition, we're really comfortable with using a kid to threaten our enemy." The White Tiger Duke sighed and said, "Heavenly Sun, what suggestions do you have? What should we do next?" The Heavenly Sun Dolor pondered for a moment before replying, "We should send a letter to the Sun Moon Empire under the name of our three empires and ask them to return the territories that they have taken from the Heavenly Soul Empire. At the same time, there should also be a contract that prohibits any war from being started within the next 100 years. We'll then return the Crown Prince to him." After hearing his words, the White Tiger Duke was stunned, and smiled bitterly. "Elder Heavenly Sun, those conditions are a little too." The Heavenly Sun Dolor said, "There's always a price to pay. If we don't set higher demands, how will we have the room to negotiate?" The White Tiger Duke was a little conflicted right now. As he looked at the little fellow in his arms, he was at a loss as to what to do. He was someone with children, and not just one child. Even though he had killed many people in his life before, he still couldn't help but sigh in his heart when he saw a child in his arms in addition to what Hui Yuhao had said earlier. Hui Yuhao appeared much calmer after he returned to his room. He didn't utter a word and only sat on his bed. Tang Wutong accompanied him and sat beside him. She grabbed his hand and placed it between her hands. After this, she lowered her head and said, "Yuhao, go and do what you want to do. No matter what your decision is, I'll always be on your side. Even if..." As she spoke until here, she lifted her head to look at him. Hui Yuhao was also gazing at her by now. As their gazes met, the look in Tang Wutong's eyes became sharper. "Even if you make the entire world your enemy." Hui Yuhao's entire body shook, and he pulled her into his embrace. His voice was trembling, "All right, even if I make the entire world my enemy." In his mind, both little Yunhan and the White Tiger Duke's face kept on appearing. "Juzi, don't worry. I'll definitely return your son to you. The war should never involve harming a little kid. In the future, we'll be enemies and I'll do my best to resist the Sun Moon Empire on the battlefield. However, I won't let your kid come to any harm now. He's only a kid. In my heart, he isn't just some crown prince." The sky slowly turned dark. It was extremely dark on the mountains at night. Two figures silently appeared at the peak of the mountain, peering into the distance amidst the thick night fog. Tang Wutong was beside Hui Yuhao, helping to neaten his shirt. Hui Yuhao's expression was very calm, but he clearly knew that this path that he had chosen would most likely change his future. However, he was very certain about his decision. Tang Wutong gently leaned on him and revealed a satisfied look on her face. "Yuhao, do you know what I'm thinking of?" Tang Wutong asked softly. What? Hui Yuhao asked. There was a strong nostalgic look in Tang Wutong's eyes. Initially, you were still so small and weak when we first came to Shrek Academy. However, you defeated me using your persistence. Then, you left a deep impression in my mind. After that, we joined the freshman test and fought together, turning the impossible possible. We emerged as the eventual champions. Now, we are going to fight together again. In fact, it seems like it's been a long time, hasn't it? Yes. They hadn't fought together in their peak condition in a long time. Ever since Hui Yuhao had been critically injured from retrieving the yearning heartbroken grass, and had to sit in a wheelchair. Hui Yuhao sighed a little and said, I hope we won't need to fight. As they finished speaking, they had already disappeared into the night. Ever since Hui Yuhao, the Heavenly Sun Doluo and the rest returned, there was another tent beside the White Tiger Duke's tent. 2 nannies were specially deployed to take care of Xu Yunhan. Xu Yunhan had been crying uncontrollably ever since he woke up and discovered that Hui Yuhao wasn't around. After a while, he couldn't stand the hunger and fell asleep after eating something. His adaptability was actually very great. He was barely a year old, and didn't recognize anyone. The curtains moved slightly, and 2 figures arrived outside the tent. It was pitch black inside the tent right now. Little Yunhan was sleeping very soundly in his cot. The 2 nannies were sleeping at his side, ready to attend to the little fellow if there was a need to. Hui Yuhao revealed a gentle smile on his face, but he didn't make a sound. He walked towards the cot. At this moment, a long sigh could be heard outside the tent. Yuhao, why do you have to do this? A low-pitched but firm voice echoed. Hui Yuhao acted like he didn't hear the voice and continued to walk towards the cot. He took little Yunhan into his embrace. After this, he wrapped him up with a piece of cloth that he had prepared beforehand. With Tang Wutong's help, he wrapped him up tightly. How could he not have expected the White Tiger Duke to guess that he was going to come? However, he still came despite knowing that. This was because he clearly knew that he couldn't be fooled if little Yunhan wasn't here, given his spiritual detection. He would also be able to find little Yunhan's detailed location with his spiritual detection. This was why the White Tiger Duke didn't move little Yunhan away. Hui Yuhao also went along with it, which brought him here. He gently caressed the little baby's soft black hair. The gentle look on his face didn't change. Little fellow, don't worry. I'll protect you until you return to your mother's side. After he finished speaking, he held Tang Wutong's hand, and the 2 of them walked out of the tent. Outside the tent, more than 10 figures were scattered in a semicircle. The White Tiger Duke and Heavenly Sun Doluo were in the center. The Heavenly Sun Doluo furrowed his brow, while the White Tiger Duke appeared as conflicted as before. Without a doubt, the Heavenly Sun Doluo was a little disdainful of Hui Yuhao in the beginning, but now, he was very impressed with Hui Yuhao, just like how the White Tiger Duke. They both knew that Hui Yuhao was going to be the main pillar of Shrek Academy and a man of power in Shrek City in the future. If they could, they didn't want to offend someone like him and get into his bad books. However, Hui Yuhao was crossing the line by trying to take Xu Yunhan away. The Heavenly Soul Doluo said, Yuhao, we can take it as if nothing has happened if you leave the Crown Prince now. You can return to Shrek City. Hui Yuhao shook his head and answered, since I'm here, there's not backing out. We can't use a child as a bargaining chip in this war. We can't hurt him because of that. This is why I must take him away today. No matter what, I'm leaving with him. The Heavenly Sun Doluo's look turned sharper. How dare you? Do you really think you can escape with so many people here? Hui Yuhao's eyes were filled with resilience and a strong fighting intent. If I don't give it a try, how will I know? Even if I fail, at least I tried. If you want the kid back, you'll need to stop me first. The Heavenly Sun Doluo's clothes moved even though there was no wind. All right, what an arrogant little man. I really want to see what abilities you possess apart from your detection and concealment abilities. How dare you talk so big? As he spoke, the Heavenly Sun Doluo took a step forward. His entire body instantly started to shine. The strong light that came from his body made him seem like a rising sun. He reached forward with his right hand and grabbed towards Hui Yu Hao. A golden hand appeared in the air and approached Hui Yu Hao. The surrounding air distorted tremendously, and the temperature rose quickly. However, the weird thing was that the temperature only rose around Hui Yu Hao. Nothing changed elsewhere. With his control of his soul power, this rank 97 transcendent Doluo was indeed very powerful. Hui Yu Hao took a step forward with his left foot. He placed his left palm in front of his chest and slowly pushed it forward. He wasn't quick, but the expressions of all the titled Doluo changed when they saw him doing this. This was because all of them could sense that an ice mountain seemed to shift as Hui Yu Hao pushed his palm forward. The immense aura that was released didn't seem to be weaker than that of the heavenly sun Doluo. Behind Hui Yu Hao, a beam of jade green light also started to shine. It was a ravishing beauty that was exuding a jade green glow from her body. She was icy cold as she stared at the heavenly sun Doluo. The heat in the air was completely suppressed after she appeared. Even the light from the heavenly sun Doluo's hand became much dimmer because of her. Kai? Hui Yu Hao didn't move a single inch, but the hand that the heavenly sun Doluo formed was crushed in the air. A slightly red look appeared on Hui Yu Hao's face, but it soon disappeared. The heavenly sun Doluo was the most astonished by what he saw. He had thought that he already regarded Hui Yu Hao very highly. However, it was only after seeing that he realized he had underestimated Hui Yu Hao. Even though he hadn't unleashed his full power yet, Hui Yu Hao was still able to directly resist his attack. What did this mean? It meant that Hui Yu Hao was strong enough to resist him. It was important to note that every single rank from a transcendent Doluo on represented vastly different levels of abilities. To be able to resist the heavenly sun Doluo's attack, Hui Yu Hao had to at least possess the fighting strength of a rank 95 transcendent Doluo. None of the titled Doluo around were able to do that. The White Tiger Duke's eyes immediately shrank. He didn't expect Hui Yu Hao's abilities to have grown to such a standard in just a short 2 years. This was astonishing. It was already very difficult to accept the fact that he was a titled Doluo who was barely 20, much less a transcendent Doluo who was barely 20. Of course, Hui Yu Hao wasn't a transcendent Doluo. He was still a rank 89 soul Doluo, yet to make his breakthrough. However, it must not be forgotten that he had a soul core. In terms of direct fighting strength, he was not weaker than a titled Doluo. He even had Tang Wutong with him. When he combined his power with Tang Wutong, the fighting strength that they could generate was indeed at the tier of a transcendent Doluo. Out of the 3 graduation tests that Shrek Academy set for Hui Yu Hao, one of them involved Hui Yu Hao being able to defeat Dean Yang Xiaoxia. Yang Xiaoxia was a class 97 transcendent Doluo now. Hui Yu Hao and Tang Wutong weren't confident of beating him, but they were confident of escaping from him. The heavenly sun Doluo was also ranked 97, but his abilities were still some way off from Yang Xiaoxia. As a result, it was easy for Hui Yu Hao and Tang Wutong to resist the heavenly sun Doluo's attack. Everything sounded very slow, but it actually happened in a flash. After his attack was dissipated, the heavenly soul Doluo's body instantly shone, and a blinding ball of sunlight also started to glow above his head. Countless streaks of blinding golden light turned into rays of light that shot toward Hui Yu Hao. Lofty light rays. It was the heavenly soul Doluo's signature soul skill. Hui Yu Hao remained unmoved. He slowly raised his right palm, which he had pushed forward earlier, and was now covered in diamond ice crystals. The heavenly sun Doluo's martial soul was fire type. Although it was of a very high quality, it was still some way off from ultimate fire. Hui Yu Hao's ultimate ice martial soul was the jinx of fire type martial souls. When his opponent's martial soul wasn't as strong as his martial soul would have an even greater effect. He mimicked a lifting action, and the jade green projection behind him disappeared. What replaced it was a fatso. This fatso was smiling from ear to ear, and his body exuded a strong icy blue glow. He chuckled at the heavenly sun Doluo. Following this, a huge ball of icy blue light shot violently into the air with Hui Yu Hao at the center. This was the 8th soul skill of Hui Yu Hao's Ice Jade Emperor Scorpion, Icy Meteor. Hui Yu Hao clearly knew that it wasn't easy for him to break free from an encirclement by more than 10 titled Doluo. Among these titled Doluo, 5 of them were transcendent Doluo. Although the combination of Tang Wutong and his abilities were extraordinary, it wasn't possible for both of them to resist so many titled Dolor at once. If they couldn't directly resist them, they could only find a means of escaping. Once they managed to put some distance between themselves and these titled Dolor, Yu Hao could use his concealment abilities to flee. When that happened, there wouldn't be any problems even if there were many more titled Dolor around. This was why he immediately used his strongest soul skills. When he first unleashed his icy meteor, it only appeared as a huge icy ball that was a meter in diameter. Nothing seemed to be very special about it. However, it kept growing larger as it rose. Furthermore, an icy aura was becoming stronger and more violent inside this icy ball. When the heavenly sun Dolor's light struck this icy meteor, they were immediately dissipated. There wasn't any effect at all. The heavenly sun Dolor's expression changed slightly. If he wanted to unleash a powerful soul skill, he would need time to accumulate his power. Yu Hao was able to use his icy meteor immediately because he was already prepared, and also because he had the help of his spirits. The star anise mysterious ice grass had already appeared on his shoulder. This was why the heavenly sun Dolor didn't have time to unleash a powerful soul skill. He could only use his own immense strength to resist the icy meteor. Bang! The heavenly sun Dolor's palm struck the icy meteor. In his opinion, Yu Hao's abilities were already at the standard of a transcendent Dolor. At most, he would be flung away from trying to resist the attack. However, something unexpected happened. When his palms struck the icy meteor stopped for a moment. However, it didn't blow apart. It didn't unleash any extraordinary power either. The heavenly sun Dolor only felt as if there was a layer of glue on his palm, which glued it to the icy ball. Before he could even struggle, a weird yet terrifying power was violently unleashed from the icy meteor. It wasn't an attack, but a thrusting force. What was a meteor? It was an extremely rapid cluster of rock. This icy meteor wasn't an exception. Under Yu Hao's precise control, its explosive strength wasn't unleashed. However, its speed was demonstrated almost instantly. As a result, all the titled Dolor saw how terrifyingly quick the ice meteor was. It had really turned into a real meteor that flew into the distance. It didn't fly away on its own. The heavenly sun Dolor was still with it. This ice meteor was clearly taking the heavenly sun Dolor away with it. It was so quick that it appeared like a bolt of lightning. This meant that Yu Hao had forcefully dragged a rank 97 titled Dolor away in just a few clashes, though whether he could harm the heavenly soul Dolor was another thing. At least he was able to isolate the heavenly sun Dolor from the fight. Yu Hao's right hand didn't move down at all. The fatso behind his back changed to a ravishing yet mighty-looking lady, who seemed to dominate the entire world. She was dressed in a long, white dress. She opened her arms behind Yu Hao's back. Suddenly, an intense, deep blue light turned into a huge beam of light that rose into the sky. Even the heavenly sun Dolor was greatly disadvantaged in the previous clash of hands. The rest of the titled Dolor were slightly hesitant now. No one entertained the thought of striking first. This was because they were still unsure of how strong Yu Hao was. The beam of light shot into the sky. As it moved, countless snowflakes danced in the air, and the entire region was covered in an icy fog. It was the snowy dance of ultimate ice. It was just like how the heavenly sun Dolor focused all the heat on Yu Hao earlier. When Yu Hao unleashed his snowy dance of ultimate ice, only the titled Dolor were engulfed by this domain. Even the tents behind them were isolated. However, even so, all the titled Dolor felt as if they had lost track of Yu Hao instantly. As Yu Hao's cultivation increased, his snowy dance of ultimate ice naturally became much stronger. It became easy for him to isolate all use of spiritual detection. After all, that was his signature ability. Strong spiritual undulations were also released from his body. His eyes had turned completely golden. On his forehead, his vertical eye lit up. It was his eye of destiny. 2 rays of the light of destiny descended from the sky and struck both him and Tang Wutong. Luck was on their side now. Yu Hao held onto Tang Wutong's little hand, and she naturally went into his embrace. Suddenly, a huge golden vertical eye suddenly appeared. Right now, all the title Doluor were jolted to their senses. They used their powers to attempt to break out of the domain. However, this was a powerful domain-type skill that was a combination of the Empress Chill and Hui Yuhao's domain of perpetual ice. Given how strong his combination with Tang Wutong was as well as the Snow Empress control of this skill, every title Doluor had to resist the blizzard and frenzied winds within the domain. They had to protect themselves before they could try breaking out. It was also at this moment that Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong's next soul skill was unleashed. The Golden Road amidst withering resplendence. Hui Yuhao's abilities were as great as a title Doluor. Tang Wutong was already a title Doluor. The fusion skills unleashed by both of them were extremely powerful. A golden road which was 30 meters wide and infinitely long appeared. 5 title Doluor were caught within this golden road. They only felt as if they had instantly fallen into a furnace. Their sensing of soul skills instantly vanished. Their own martial souls also disintegrated immediately. Even their clothes immediately melted. Suddenly, they were all petrified, and couldn't move at all. Among these 5 title Doluor, one of them was even a transcendent Doluor. However, he was still stuck in the same situation. A purplish light projection suddenly rushed out at this moment. It was a huge, purplish dragon with butterfly wings. As it fluttered its wings, it was like a streak of flowing purple light. It was flying along the golden road. As it flew, countless small golden hammers scattered in the air. All the title Doluor that charged over were immediately stunned. They could only watch as the purplish light projection shot past. They couldn't chase after it at all. Mantra amidst the void, spiritual tempest. The projection vanished amidst the golden light. The raging blizzard also slowly disappeared. What remained was only a bunch of title Doluor who were in shock as they looked at each other. There were more than 10 title Doluor. Were they so weak that they couldn't keep 2 people here? Of course not. They didn't think of linking up at all. In their eyes, Hui Yuhao and Tang Wutong were only juniors, no matter how talented they were. At most, they were only close to being title Doluor. The Heavenly Sun Doluor should have been enough to deal with both of them. This video will end here.